Women's sports have always gotten less attention than their male counterparts, but this has improved over the years. For female racers, the biggest moment came with the female Tour de France, the biggest bike race in the world, and veteran Hannah Barnes has a few things to say. In this video, we'll look at what Hannah Barnes thinks of the female Tour de France, so stay tuned. First and foremost, Hannah Barnes talks about the Tour de France with John Donnison. In 2021, British cyclist Hannah Barnes departed from the Canyon Scram after she signed a contract with the new Uno X women's team to race with them in 2022 and 2023. As a veteran of the sport, she adopted a leadership role and helped develop the team by using her sizable experience in racing. She said it was an exciting time for Uno X and that she was thrilled to be part of the women's team from the beginning. Hannah's last major result was when she came in 5th in the Omloop Het Nieuwsblad. The men's Tour de France came to a close on the 24th of July 2022 with its final stage in Paris. The winner was Jonas Vingegaard from Denmark at the same time as the men's race finished. The first Tour de France Femme started in the French capital. Before 2022, many failed attempts to set up a world-class women's race between 1984 and 2009 and 2014 and 2021. All those races had to deal with a lack of media coverage and trademark issues with the organizers of the Tour de France. The Tour de France Femme became the first established major women's race. Hannah Barnes was among the cyclists who participated in the Uno X Pro Cycling Team's launch race. In an interview with John Donnison of NewsHour, the 29-year-old talked about how she felt about race and the differences between women's and men's cycle races. Up next, Barnes' experience in the most famous bike race in the world. First of all, Hannah thinks that even though she has taken part in the world-famous bike race twice before, this one was special. She races for Uno X, a Norwegian and Danish team, and this year's male winner of the Tour de France was also Danish. She mentioned that the race started in Copenhagen 3 weeks before it ended, and Hannah thinks the crowd was wild, and everyone was there to cheer on the several Danish riders taking part in the race. She didn't want to miss out, and she mentioned she thought that one of the best parts of being a cyclist fan was here. She said there are no tickets or lining up for hours, and people can easily come and watch their idols and cheer them on. John Donnison asked Barnes how she felt about having a women's Tour de France, and she replied she wasn't completely sure. She'd been a professional for over 10 years. Barnes mentioned that she had seen a lot of improvement in the coverage and media attention towards women's bike racing over the years. More races were added, and the Tour de France for women was the only thing remaining. She said finally having it after all this time was great, and the media buzz around the race helped her truly experience what the Tour de France was like. Now for Hannah's opinion on the difference between male and female races. The women's race was 8 days, while the male race was over 3 weeks. John Donnison asked Hannah how she felt about the difference and whether she thought the females' race should have been longer, but she felt it was fine. She mentioned that their race was really exciting, and while the men covered around 240 kilometers, the females covered around 140 kilometers. She said that while the men had transition days over the 3 weeks, the women had 8 straight days, which made the experience more exhilarating with continuous action and a chance to elevate the sport. It's a good opinion and shows how far the sport has come. Hannah is a veteran in the industry and has witnessed female bike racing climb, so she knows better than anyone else how important it is to seize their chance at glory. Last but not least, Hannah discusses sponsors and financing in the sport. John Donnison asked Hannah whether she thought it was viable that female bike racing became as big as male racing when it came to sponsors. The Tour de France is a giant event, and a lot of money is poured into advertising each year. Now, Hannah thinks it's also possible for women to participate in the female Tour de France. She's looking forward to seeing billboards and big sponsorships for racers now that the Tour de France platform has given them an opportunity. Companies will be attracted to the media attention it provides. Hannah mentioned that this was important for them and would make a big difference. She mentioned it would especially help any struggling things. And she's right. At the end of the day, it isn't possible to keep a team afloat with passion alone, and sponsors will change the game. Donnison also mentioned a one-day event in the Alps where female racers biked up a mountain, and a few men only beat the winner's time. He asked if Hannah thought women could catch up, but Hannah said there just wasn't a place for it, and the dynamics are very different. She said she had friends who competed in the men's peloton, and after comparing them with herself, she said the way they raced was different. She said that observers loved how aggressive they were because women fought each other as soon as the race started. She also named Giro d'Italia winners Annemiek van Vleuten, Demi Vollering, and Marta Cavalli the top tips for this year's winners. Now, in other news. Firstly, the Massif Central will be hosting Tour de France Femme. The 2023 Tour de France Femme will start with a Grand Depart on the 23rd of July in Clermont-Ferrand, the Auvergne region's capital in the Massif Central. The 8-day race is expected from the 23rd to the 30th of July next summer. It is speculated that it will have many stages stages in the Auvergne region, and there might be a mountain stage in Puy-de-Dôme. Marion Rousse, the director of Tour de France Femmes, recently visited the Auvergne region to examine its potential to host different event stages next year. The Tour de France Femmes is scheduled to begin on the same day on which stage 21 of the men's race will end in Paris. Reportedly, the Auvergne region will also host a mountain stage 9 in the men's race. Olivier Bianchi, the mayor of Clermont-Ferrand, said that one of the most important factors in deciding where to host the women's race was gender equality. She said that they have made gender equality an important point in their sports policy, that they were happy that the women's Tour de France was starting up again, and that Clermont was a potential host. Up next, top riders are looking forward to the Tour moving away from Paris. After the news that the Tour de France Femmes won't take place in Paris, many top stars have voiced their opinion. Ashley Moolman-Pasio said that she was happy about the change. She said that as iconic as it is to race on the Champs-Élysées, it isn't the best way to start a Grand Tour because it creates an element of risk for the participants. Juliette Lebeau said that it was nice in Paris with many people, but she felt they were coming there more for the men's race. She said it would be special if people came this time because it would be for them. Veronica Ewer said that some people say that it isn't a good idea because the men finish in Paris, but she doesn't agree. She said that it would add another level of difference between the men and women's tour, and it would be interesting and a change of scenery. Finally, Van Vleuten voices her support for the women's race moving away from Paris. Annemiek van Vleuten, the Tour de France Femmes champion, talked about the women's race making it start somewhere other than Paris. She said she was super happy this year that they started their race on the same day as the guys and took the audience with them. She said that perhaps the Tour is ready to stop on relying on the men's race for a larger audience because people might come to watch them on the same day. France had almost 20 million spectators over the 8 days of the race. The finale, in which the 40-year-old gained the victory alone, was viewed by over 5 million people in France. That's a wrap for this video. What did you think about Hannah Barnes' performance in the Tour de France? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. Thanks for watching, and we'll see ya in the next one.